I've been in the,
I
I'm
thought
from
it was.
60.
I thought you were born and you became a master of wine right away.
Yeah, sure, sure. I was born in 62, so I became an MW when I was 30 years old. Yeah,
Wow, quite
yeah,
young.
yeah. And by that time, I was working already for 7 years in the wine business. So I've been working in the wine business since 1985. But I got my first wine course in 1981 when I studied hotel management. So
Wow, I was not even
yeah.
born.
No, exactly. So yeah, I'm talking a lot from my experience,
Yeah.
from all the things I've done in the wine world, and currently my work is a lot about education, more than 50%, and I'm heading the wine department of a major Russian supermarket chain called OK, and that's taking a week per month also. And that's actually what I'm doing mostly at the moment because I'm stuck to home, as all of you are
Yeah,
probably.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Good.
amazing. So I feel like every time I'm talking to you, I feel so lucky and honored because I'm talking to a master of wine, first of all, but not any master of wine, a master of wine with 35 years experience in the wine industry. So every session is really important and valuable for me. And today's topic is investing in fine wine. I chose this
Yes,
topic. It's like it's for personal
yes, you
interest.
do.
I really want to. I
Yeah,
really want to learn more about it. And
yeah,
also, the other thing that before we start with the topic that I want to mention, you managed two five-star wine cellars,
yes,
Palais
I did.
Coburg in Vienna, and also
Quite a bit.
in Switzerland, right? Park Hotel,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And Palais Coburg was awarded as the one of the best wine cellars in the world, right? In
the
2014.
best, the
Yeah,
best.
the best, the best. So exactly.
Yeah,
So that's why, like, so we
yeah.
have the person to talk about this fine wine investment. So how do you want to start? I already have my questions, but do you want to give us like a little bit insight of like what is investing in wine, or is
Yeah.
wine an asset to invest?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, wine can be an asset, interesting for investments, but it's not an easy one. It is. There are many things to consider. First of all, it's only a very limited amount of wines in the world that actually really increases in value, making it worth investing in it. So just buying, let's for example say 100 Parker Point wine. That's not an investment because there are plenty of 100 Parker Point wines that will actually not increase in price over time, and so they are bad investments. So the second thing is that when you know what to buy, you need to know when to buy, from whom to buy. I would say as early as possible in the lifeline of a wine, and as directly as possible. I would I would not recommend buying, for example, in the secondary market, which is the auction market, unless you know very well what you're doing. But by the time wine ends up in an auction, um, probably a major part of the price increase has already been done. And I certainly would be very careful buying really aged wines in auctions because there's a lot of bad stuff around nowadays, much more than people realize. Actually.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
that's
also
maybe a
there,
totally different subject, but
yeah, but there are also fake wines, right? In or the
yeah, I
wines,
was
the
talking
fake
about fake
wines,
wines.
yeah, fake wines.
Yeah. And there's
Okay.
a lot of that around, believe me, much more than you would think.
Yeah.
And then the third point is that okay, when you buy, and when you know what to buy and when to buy it, is how are you going to store it, and to get, for example, to get the best possible profit out of it, you should keep the wine, you should keep the cases intact, never open it, never take out one bottle because that really decreases the value of all the other relevant bottles as well. You have to store it very well, etc., etc. And then the last point comes: when are you going to sell it, and how are you going to
How
sell
we
it?
can
And that's
sell it. Okay.
maybe even the most important
important thing.
Yeah.
So maybe if you want, we can break down this topic a little bit. And I'm just going to make a reminder to new joiners because many people are joining now. Hi, Sergio. Hi, Aida. Hi, Sena. The topic is how to invest in fine wine or investments in fine wine. We're talking with Frank Smulders, Master of Wine. So, what I was going to ask, actually, yes, there are so many parts of this, the whole investment in fine wine, but what makes a wine collectible?
How to make sure that you buy something that will increase in value, you mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I think it's actually if you have a look at for example, at Livex, which is a source for seeing how wine prices develop over time, but you have to be a subscriber to Livex to be able to use it. And it's quite expensive, but it usually comes down to the usual suspects, but you know the big names. And it's 90% the classic French wines, really. And the other 10% is a bit of Italy, the odd bottle of Vega Sicilia, and maybe something terrific from Napa. And that's about it. And so as I said before, just the fact that it is a great wine or a famous wine or that it has a fantastic rating, that doesn't make it necessarily a wine worth investing in. So let's take for example, I don't know, maybe some single vineyard wines from Gaia, or maybe L'Ermita from Priorat, all that. You know, that's I would never invest in that. That's not going to deliver. No.
Okay. So can we say that, like, first of all, like, which is important is the production value, but also the reputation of
and the long-standing reputation, you know, and this is maybe where you quickly get the difference between, let's say, Romanée Conti and Chateau Latour on the one side, and I don't know, some great Brunello on the other side, you know. Wines that are newcomers on the market, they may seem to do very well in a couple of years, in the first 10 years, but on the long run, they're usually not performing very well.
Okay. Actually, here, just like two questions we received. One is Sergi, actually both is Sergi. Sergi is asking, you don't include on the big ones like Grange or Penfolds?
And Penfolds Grange, yes. Well, that would typically be one of the few Australian New World wines that would actually be a possible target for investing in. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And Champagne, what about Champagne?
They don't live that long.
Yeah.
So it's also about looking at the long run, you know. And of course, there are wonderful bottles of Salon or whatever that you can easily keep 10, 15 years. But since they do not necessarily have the longevity of the best Burgundies and Bordeaux, they are usually not the likely wines to invest in. No.
Okay. Unless maybe it is a specific really producer in Champagne, specific maison, or...
Yeah, that's true. But there's a very few very specific wines from very great vintages. Yeah, maybe. Why not? Yeah.
Okay. And also Tony asked a question, and it is the question that I was going to ask. So the vintage variation. Let's say we know that 2015 was a great vintage in Bordeaux. Is almost all the Bordeaux producers, high quality producers for 2015 are investable, or we really need to pay attention to the reputation of the
No, but I think if you focus on the Premier Crus and some of the super seconds like Leo Villas Case, you can never go wrong too much. But it's also a matter of how fast you want your return on investment. And let's take, for example, 2010. 2010 was a great vintage, definitely, and it was probably, with hindsight, even a little bit better than 2009. But it was outrageously expensive. 9 was already expensive. 10 was also very expensive. because in those years China was a major market. It's no more anymore now, but so people were also buying with the idea of I'll resell the stuff later on to China. But what then happened was that actually having two really great vintages, one after the other, that was already a problem, because by that time, at the end, 10 became rather difficult to sell because the market was saturated, and actually it took a hell of a lot of time for 10 to gain for the top chateaus to gain a little bit in value, and so then you come to a point. Yes, of course, I think it was still worthwhile buying the 10 vintage. But you had to wait at least 10 years, if not more, before you will see any return on that.
Okay. So it's like, it's also a little bit in wine investment works like a little bit like the trades, no? You can do your short-term strategy, or you can do a long-term strategy.
Yeah, but I think wine is much more long-term.
Okay.
Long-term,
It's much more long-term. But the question remains, how are you going to sell it? Because most people, what they will do is put it on the secondary market, meaning you sell it through an auctioneer. Don't forget that the auctioneer will take a commission, 5 to 10%, and you're never sure of the results. You offer your case. You may want to put in, let's say, a bottom price, but still you never know how much you will get, and then once you get it, you lose probably 10% to the auctioneer.
10%, okay. Actually, there was a question before, selling channels. So where can we sell wine? They were asking. So like auctions is one of the options, I think.
Well,
but if you don't want, it's the usual one. But if you don't, I mean, are there other options for investing and then make a profit out of your investment, or only is auctions?
I would say if you're in the business and you know the business and you know the channels, you could do outside the auctions, and you could maybe find a direct link to whatever, to international traders or even maybe top hotels, whatever. But then you need to know you need to know the market, you need to know the people, and then it gets much more complicated. So the easy way is go to an auctioneer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So Tony says again, for the private consumer, it's best to buy en premier to get the best price possible if you're not in the industry.
Yeah, probably. And also to be sure about authenticity. Buy en premier, so keep the line as short as possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the other session that we were talking on Monday, you were saying that in Bordeaux on Premier Tastings is cancelled this year due to the coronavirus. So then it is going to also affect the other side of the story. Like, is it going to affect the wine investment? And also there's a question about that as well from Turkey, asking the same question. If the coronavirus will affect the investments or wine market now?
Yes, on the short term, yes. I'm pretty sure. On the short term, I'm pretty sure we're going to see price decreases.
So
probably all over the place.
Yeah. So should we buy now? if someone wants to invest, should we buy now?
Depends on the quality of the vintage.
Yeah, obviously.
Depends on the quality of the vintage.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a good but not great vintage in Bordeaux. That's what I hear. Maybe not that much. I think I don't know, probably, unless in some regions 19 is a great vintage, but I'm not sure it is. It would be a really good vintage to invest in for your own pleasure. You might be able to buy really good wines at a decent price for your own consumption instead of for the money.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I have no idea about this. I never done an investment like in wine investment, unless for my personal consumption. You said like my pleasure, I buy and then I keep it and I wanna drink it later and enjoy the better when I bought the priceless. But if you want to do the professional investment, is that true that if you want to enjoy the bottle that you buy for yourself, you have to buy either 7 or 13, so you shouldn't open the case?
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, okay.
That's definitely true.
But if you want to sell it, do you have to sell the entire case, or can you sell bottles, but you still have to have the case unopened.
It depends on what it is, but generally speaking, you'll get a better price per bottle if you can sell the whole unopened case instead of selling a loose or loose bottles. You always get the best price if you got the full untouched case, not opened, closed. The best possible price is when you've got a case with the sort of iron wraps around it, proving that it was never ever opened. That's how you get the very best price.
Best price. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, not speaking about Corona, but generally, how does wine perform during a financial crisis?
Prices go down.
Go down.
If you think of situations where the markets, it depends. I mean, in 2008, when the financial crisis started, it wasn't that bad because mainly because of China actually, and China was putting the prices of Bordeaux and Burgundy up for a while. But the last really big economic crisis was in the early 90s during the Kuwait War. And then the whole wine business was in a huge slump. Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne was terrible. You couldn't sell it. Prices were very low. I remember Chateau Latour in 1991, which was not a very good vintage, but it was okay. Selling for nowadays price 15 euros in French supermarkets. 15 euros for Chateau Latour. 15
euros Chateau Latour.
Yes, 1.5. It's incredible.
Wow.
But nobody wanted to buy, So it is certainly wine, as is a very expensive product in that category. Wine follows the general economic trends usually. Yeah.
And then now there was a question also about the Sergi was asking now the Chinese market situation, how that will affect I think it will, then the prices will go down, as you said, right?
Yeah, but China already ceased being a major market for top wines 7 years ago. China was booming for top wine just for a short period, from let's say 2007 to 2012, and then it was all over again, because the Chinese government introduced anti-corruption laws, making it impossible to give very expensive business gifts, and that was the end of the story. And then the whole market for top wine in China collapsed and became, well, it's still there, but it's much smaller than it was at that time. And the general wine market for China last year went down 13%, general, so total volume. So, and now with the current situation, I don't know, but it's not looking good, of course. So.
Okay. So we can, to wrap up, guys, if you know what to buy, which vintage to buy, now you can invest in wine, right?
Who knows? Who knows?
Exactly. No. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm not done with my questions, but as part of the format, I don't want to keep going. Maybe we can do another session about this. Do you want to add something about the investment part, or do you want to introduce us a wine today?
Yeah, I'll introduce two wines.
Okay.
I do not like to talk so much about wine and investment. Although, to be honest, I am involved in an investment project for wine. But okay, but that's for Russians. I brought two wines. I brought one wine that I really like is a Rioja called Artuque. Artuque is a grower, two brothers actually. So it's a family-owned winery, farm, I don't know, let's put it like this, in the Rioja Alavesa, Baños de Ebro, and respecting the tradition of Rioja Alavesa, they still make a maceración carbónica, and this is one such wine. So it's a carbonic maceration Rioja, which is typical for Rioja Alavesa. They're usually not very much exported, so a lot of people don't know these wines, and they're primarily made for local consumption, but they export the wine, they do. And typically, so it's carbonic maceration with 5% Viura, 95% Tempranillo, and it's really delicious. Of course, not a great complex wine, but just delicious. Really very.
And what is the purpose of the 5% Viura in the blend? Is it to extract maybe the color or the aromatic purposes?
Yeah, a bit of acidity and mainly I would say acidity and lightness, because Viewer is not an aromatic grape, so it's not going to
That
change a
much.
lot. No.
Okay.
And I brought another bottle
Amazing.
because I did another online session.
Oh, wow.
This is something everybody should taste. This is Kracher, the famous sweet winemaker. And he actually makes a. There's so much botrytis in that area, which is the Neusiedler Ilmitz, that he even gets botrytis on red grapes, and he makes beautiful sweet Zweigelt. In this case, Auslese. Sorry, you see the front label.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's from 2018, right?
2018. But they also make in some vintages Trockenbeeren Auslese from Zweigelt, and that's really utterly delicious. It's sweet, of course, some botrytis. It smells of rose hip and rose petals, and it's sweet, but it does have acidity. And then there's a little bit of tannin, and that just gives the wine a bit more punch and length. Wonderful wine. Yeah.
So I haven't tasted this wine. I don't know it, but from what you're explaining, is it a good wine to age, right? To enjoy it, like come back to it in 5 years of time, maybe.
Yeah, maybe in 5 years. Not in. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Frank, for these 2 wines, guys. What I will do is, like, after the session, I will publish these 2 wines, so that if you want to add these wines in your personal cellar, feel free. Great. Thank you, Frank. Cheers.
See you on Monday. Have a nice weekend.
See you on Monday, guys. Have a nice weekend.
Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
You too. And Tony says, I want to finish it. One really nice comment. Thanks for this wonderful initiative in these times. Love it. So, guys, if you have any...
You're welcome, Tony. See you soon.
Yeah. If you have any suggestions for topics, you can also send us emails or text or Instagram messages, and then we will get back to that. We will have a brand new schedule for next week, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye.
Bye.